let's get into college football. That is your bread and butter. And the games, the championship games, were very surprising. TCU loses a game where a lot of people thought they should have won against Kansas State. They were obviously lucky, even though losing one game. They were undefeated all season long. They beat 3 top 15 programs, and that's probably why they're in this, this round 4 robin, whatever they call this playoff, this 14 playoff.
It'll be 12 soon.
Yes, thank God. I mean,
12 soon, yeah.
Thank God. And then obviously USC, who I believe has the Heisman Trophy winning Caleb Williams, who played on one leg in the second half of the game. What an unbelievable showing for him, and it only helps him next year if he can win back-to-back Heismans, and he'll be the number 1 pick next year, no question whatsoever. USC falls out, they lose, and then you have Ohio State. Somehow they sneak in, and they have a very good chance right now to go into this game against Georgia, and everybody has Georgia winning it. They're the head favorite to winning the whole thing. Do you think Ohio State deserves to be there, 1? And 2, do you think they can compete with Georgia and beat Georgia in a big game?
So, first question, do they deserve to be there? Yeah, absolutely they do. When you look at the way the college football season unfolded, right, there were 3 undefeated teams all the way until the last week of the season. 2 of them remained undefeated, so you have Georgia and Michigan. They're in the playoff, no question. There's no argument there. TCU is the 3rd. They lost in overtime by 3, and you look back at that game and you say, you have this quarterback, Max Duggan, who anyone who watched that game knows that guy spilled his guts out on the field, literally, right? No air left in his body, and you're on the goal line, and he doesn't touch the ball. It just doesn't make sense. So they should be undefeated, but they go into that game with as good a season almost as anyone else. The only other one-loss team in FBS football is the Ohio State Buckeyes. Their only loss is to the number 2 team in the country, Michigan. So do they deserve to get in? They absolutely do. Ohio State entered the season, for many, they were the favorites to win it all. They had an absolutely incredible wide receiver room, a great running back room, and a player who many thought could be the Heisman Trophy winner in C.J. Stroud, definitely a finalist and well-deserving. He had a fantastic season. But now, as this year kind of progressed, they lost their number 1 receiver, they lost their number 1 running back, and they're still electric offensively, but we saw some of those holes, especially on the defensive end of the field, up against Michigan. So do they deserve to get in? Yes. Can they beat Georgia? It's going to be tough, right? I don't have the odds in front of me. I don't know how much Georgia's favored by, but if it's a touchdown or less, they deserve that. Georgia is the reigning national champions, now the defending national champions coming into this. Still have a stellar defense despite losing 15 players off their national championship team last year, most of them on the defensive side of the ball, a ton of them in the first round. Stetson Bennett, I mean, people like to clown on this guy, right? He's a walk-on. He only got the starting job because other people got injured. Meanwhile, he won a national championship last year, and the guy's slinging it like all hell this year. So Georgia deserves to be the favorite. They deserve to be the number 1 seed. Ohio State is a live dog in that game. They absolutely can beat Georgia. Am I going to predict it? Am I going to pick that? Probably not.
That is flip phone legend Stetson Bennett, keep in mind, too.
Flip phone legend.
Speaking of
he
phone,
switched. I think he got an iPhone, by the way.
Hold on one second.
Speaking of phones,
he was carrying around a bottle of Don Juan, what was it, like a $2,000 bottle of champagne when he won a national championship. So I give him a lot of credit, and I like the kid. And a lot of people say that football is not even in his background. He doesn't even see himself playing football in the NFL. He's more of he's a scholar, smart guy, educated guy, and believes that he's going to. I think I read he wants to be a lawyer. So very interesting.
Speaking of phones, here's the number percentages. Apple, there's 53% of smartphone owners are Apple. Samsung, Android are 26%, and Lenovo 12%. LG 3 and others 6%. So
way less than I thought, but way more than you thought. So we're right in the middle.
So where we are? What is it, Troy?
So Samsung/Android is 26%, Apple's 53% among smartphone owners.
Really?
But only 53, not a vast majority, which is what I was contending earlier. So we're right in the middle of.
And now Stetson Bennett is apparently one of those 53 now.
There you go.
Very small samples. Speaking of Stetson Bennett, that actually translates to my next question nicely. A lot of people, including myself, were surprised that he was the last of the Heisman finalists with Doug and Stroud and Caleb Williams. I thought Hendon Hooker should have got that spot. Do you think that way too? And also, do you think that there were maybe some non-quarterbacks that could have gotten some nominees?
Yeah, I don't know what Blake Corum of Michigan had to do, but what else did you need from this guy except he ran over every single team that he faced until he got hurt and couldn't do it anymore. So, look, the Heisman has I'm not saying it's impossible for another position to win. It's happened, right? I think Devonta Smith, right, a couple of years ago, as a wide receiver won. Running backs can certainly win the award, but it, number one, has become an offensive playmaker award. If you're not an offensive playmaker, you're not going to get a shot to win. But it's really become a quarterback award more than anything else. So I was shocked that Corum wasn't there, candidly. Hendon Hooker, just as deserving, in my opinion, more deserving than Stetson Bennett, just given what he had put on film over the course of that entire year. There is something to be said, though, for finishing out the year and leading your team to a completely undefeated season and an SEC championship. And that is what Stetson Bennett did. So he's not undeserving of being there. It's just I really would have liked to have seen Corum in particular, but Hendon Hooker there as well, for sure.
Who do you think wins the Heisman Trophy?
Yeah, you nailed it earlier. Caleb Williams. You saw it, right? Those last 3 games that he put together at UCLA, against Notre Dame, and then against Utah. In that first quarter, I think 3 touchdowns. He had that crazy-ass run, the run where he pulled his hamstring. And then over the remainder of the game, did he suck? Yeah, he was playing on one leg. What do you want this guy to do, right? He was still out there gutting it out. That's like the definition of what that award is. It's putting it all on the line. And Max Duggan did too in the Big 12 championship game. He was incredible. But Caleb Williams, he's been doing it all year. And if you actually look at like his game log and you see when did he play or how did he play against the best opponents that he faced, Utah early in the season, I think he had 5 touchdowns. Those final 3 games I just mentioned, he had 11 touchdowns and 1 interception, maybe 2, something like that. He's your best player of the year. He's the Heisman Trophy winner, and he's the number 1 overall pick next year. No question.
Yeah, they definitely lose that game because of him. It was a 43-42.
It wasn't him, yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask about the other thing, the coaching carousel that's been going on. A lot of big names that are gotten moved. Matt Rhule got a big contract at Nebraska. Hugh Freeze, very controversial one, and then Deion Sanders recently too. So
how do you like that Matt Rhule contract? Do you like that?
It's a lot of money, but Nebraska is you have to remember it's a legendary all-time college football program that has been anything but on the field for a long, long time. And they hired the one guy who has proven at multiple stops that he can turn around college football programs. So if you're going to do it, you need to go all in, not just with the head coach contract, with the assistant salary pool, your NIL, all that type of stuff. So I think it was the perfect hire for Nebraska. And you do what you need to do these days. There's no salary cap in college football, especially for coaches. You do what you need to do to get that guy. He now has NFL bona fides as well, given the fact he wasn't good in the league. I mean, he was arguably the worst coach in the league or one of them, but he has the bona fides of having coached there and knowing what it takes to get to the NFL. You do whatever you can to hire Matt Rhule. They did, and I think it's going to work out for Nebraska.
Deion Sanders, Colorado. Like it?
Like it. Another program in Colorado that has that extended history in the past and just hasn't been able to realize it in the present for numerous reasons, university reasons, monetary reasons, with the football program and how much investment the university puts into it. And they just decided, or someone, maybe it was a booster, decided, I'm sick of this. We want to have winning football again. Now we're going to go after the splashiest name that we can get. Is it the best coach they can get? Time's going to tell, right? Certainly what he's done at Jackson State has been incredibly impressive, raising the profile, not just of that program, but HBCUs in totality, and he's delivered basically on every single promise that he made for Jackson State. Is it going to work at Colorado and at a Power 5? I don't know, but I'll tell you, it's been, 3 days, and I'm super entertained by it. So I'm ready to see it. At worst, Colorado is going to get a lot of really talented kids on its roster. There's going to be a number of really high-quality assistant coaches that join that program because they're going to get paid really well. And if Deion doesn't work out as a head coach or if something happens, well, if they make that change, they have a stacked roster and some pretty good assistants that they can probably pull from. But I do think Colorado, it's been a Mormon program. It just hasn't figured out a way to win in this modern era of college football. And in college football, it all starts. The number one asset is talent acquisition. It's the one thing that Deion Sanders absolutely, without question, can do. So is he the right man for the job? Yes. Is it going to work? I hate to keep ending all my answers with questions, but I just don't know if it's going to work. there more than anywhere else. I'm much more confident in like Nebraska, for example, than I am Colorado, but I'm excited to see what happens with the Buffaloes.
How about the Badgers? Does Fickell really change that program? Does Fickell make this team a championship competitive team, a national championship competitive team?
Yeah, Wisconsin they're just in that really interesting spot in the Big Ten. And, divisions may go away soon, but they're able to dominate largely that West Division just by the investment in the program, the talent that they get, and bringing in a coach like Luke Fickell, who is made to coach in the Big Ten and certainly has always wanted to be a head coach in the Big Ten. It's really the right move to take a program that goes up and down pretty consistently and hasn't been able to really keep a strong level of performance since Brett Bielema left. I think for Arkansas it was at the time.
Yep.
To bring in someone like Fickell, they're bringing in like that equivalent, that Big Ten guy who may not win in year one. It may take a couple, but I do think he's going to get them to where they need to be. It's also really smart for them to go after Fickell now. Look, we don't know what's going to happen with Ohio State. If they happen to lose to Michigan again next year, like if they lose in the playoff semi, right, especially if it's bad, then they lose to Michigan next year, there's a non-zero chance that they fire Ryan Day. Like the Ohio State fan base is not going to accept losing to Michigan 3 years in a row, not winning Big Ten titles and not getting in or winning college football playoffs. And if they did that and Luke Fickell was still at Cincinnati, they would have immediately gone after Luke Fickell. Now that he's in Wisconsin, that becomes a lot more difficult. And I would assume the buyout is crazy. So Wisconsin struck, they got the guy that Ohio State probably would have gotten, and it should work out pretty well for them.
So I'll shift to the NFL now. We saw two quarterbacks get hurt this past week. Jimmy G, not a season-ending injury. He might come back in the playoffs, maybe in the second round of the playoffs, and then Lamar Jackson as well. So what are your thoughts on the injury impact for those two teams, both contending teams?
Yeah, I mean, Brock Purdy, I'm a Dolphin supporter. I live in South Florida, so I was on the losing end of that game, and I saw what Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy did to a Dolphins defense that isn't great by any means, but isn't bad.
Yeah.
Relatively tore them apart. So I think San Francisco, plus the way they run their offense through the running game, and they use Debo so creatively. They have Christian McCaffrey. They have so many great pieces from a playmaking standpoint. George Kittle, obviously, that if you need to bring in a different quarterback, whether it's for 4 weeks, apparently Garoppolo can come back in 7 or 8 weeks, they're saying. Who knows if San Francisco will even be playing in 7 or 8 weeks, hopefully for them that they are. But if you need someone to come in and manage a game and you have those pieces with a creative coach like Kyle Shanahan leading the charge, then I liked what I saw from Brock Purdy. I liked it a lot. Now, the Dolphins probably didn't watch any film on him, but still, I liked what he did. Over with Ravens and Tyler Huntley stepping in for Lamar Jackson, Lamar had been falling off. Lamar has been my starting quarterback in fantasy all year. Lamar's been falling off the last 5-6 weeks. He's just not getting it done, and their offense seems to be stuck in a rut. So bringing Tyler Huntley in certainly isn't going to make it any better. I don't think it's really going to make it that much worse. So the Ravens' prospects in the playoffs or doing anything this year, whether it's with Lamar, whether it's with Huntley, I don't know that they're that great. San Francisco, I think they're going to be okay. I don't think that Purdy's going to suddenly steal the job from Jimmy G, but he proved capable in his one opportunity so far. And again, they have those other pieces where you say, hey, how big of a deal is it with their defense being as great as it is? And those playmakers, Purdy can win a lot of games with them.